Welcome, Life Sciences. Welcome to another exciting life science lesson. We are going to be revising the whole of the plant section. I know it's not your favorite, right? When we do the plant section in class, my kids tend to roll their eyes way back into the back of their head, but unfortunately it is a really important section that we're going to look at. So we're looking at the whole of the plant section. We're revising all of plants, the plant tissues, the plant organs, right? How water and food move through the plants, all of that stuff, right? And we're going to start now because there's a lot of things that we're going to need to get to do. As I said to you, you can see on the mind map, that's how we've broken it down. You've got your plant tissues make up plant organs, right? And those plant organs bring in the transport system. The same as later when you looked at mammalian tissues, you're going to look at the heart and you're going to look at the skeleton, support and transport in humans. Guys, please, plants should not be forgotten. They play a very vital role in our ecosystem. Terms, right, that you should be ringing a bell, that should be familiar to you. If not, you've got to revise, go over those things, just so that we can, all right, so that things are much clearer. Remember, you're going to be writing exams at the end of the year, or you might be writing tests, and I'm sure you want to do well. Okay, before we start, just remember one thing. Plant tissue is all about a plant cell. I know that sounds so weird, all right, but when we looked at mammalian tissue, we looked at an animal cell. So when you look at plant tissue, and guys, sometimes when you get confused if it's an animal, if it's a plant, let's look at three things. Number one, when we look at plant tissue, we're going to tweak the cell wall. What I mean is we can make it thin, we can make it thick, depending on what we want. What's another thing that we can tweak or play around with is this vacuole. A vacuole plays a far more important role in plants than it does in animals. So the vacuole is going to play an important role here. What else does a plant have that an animal doesn't have is a chloroplast. So obviously, if we're thinking of plant tissue, if it's going to photosynthesize, we're going to find chloroplasts in those. So always keep that in the back of your mind. Plant cell. Cell wall, large vacuole, and it could have chloroplasts. Okay, guys, when we look at tissue, what is tissue? Same as when we looked at mammalian tissue, know the definition, right? What is a tissue? It's a group of cells, right? That was just a cell that we looked at. And what do they have in common? They have a similar structure because what do they need to do? They need to perform a specific function. Now, when it comes to plant tissues, all right, what do we have? We're going to have the meristematic tissue. That's going to be your embryonic tissue. That is going to be tissue that gives rise, differentiates into all of the permanent tissue. What do we have? We have ground tissue, tissue that packs, tissue that stores. We need tissue that's strong. We need tissue that supports, right? We need tissue that protects our body, and we need tissue that transports things. Very much the same as our mammalian. Plants, however, are going to be less complex because they do less. Let's quickly go through the first, all right, tissue, right, when you look at it. A meristematic tissue. Now, guys, very simply, a meristematic tissue can divide by mitosis. So, if I am a plant, all right, I'm going to draw a flower here, I'm going to draw a root here. What does meristematic tissue do? My roots can grow, right? My plant can grow upwards, and sometimes a plant can grow outwards. Anytime I have movement in that direction, meristematic tissue is going to be there. It's simple, basic tissue. Meristematic tissue is what we call our embryonic. And guys, what it means is, this is the word here, it differentiates, it changes. right? The same as embryonic tissue in the human can change to the muscle, to the blood, to any of the tissues. So does the meristematic tissue. It changes and differentiates into any of the tissues that we're going to look at. Okay. Now remember, structure versus function, very important here. Why? The tissues are going to make up the organs. The organs are going to have an effect on how the plant is going to function. Guys, like this, everything is connected. It's not one little box, one little box, one box. It's an interconnection, right, of ideas and concepts that you need to understand here. Okay, first thing we need to be able to understand is our tissue, right? First group of tissues. I'm not going to go into in detail. You have done this before. This is just a revision. Epidermal tissue is on the outside. It's the same as your epidermis of your skin, right? It's cells that are thin-walled. They're right next to each other. I don't want spaces. Why? That would mean a lack of protection. I want the cells together. But what I also notice, what is on the outside, sometimes I need to have a slightly different structure because I have a specific function. In roots, I need to have a root hair. Why? What do roots do? Absorb water. So guys, that's very important when it comes to looking at how, all right, the movements of water through plants. Next thing, what is this? It's a specialized epidermal cell, the same as the root. It is a stomata. Where is it found? On a leaf. Why? It can open and close. Things can go in, things can go out. Gases, water, transpiration, as you looked at that concept when we look at how things move through the body. Okay. Next one, ground tissue, parenchyma, packing. P for packing. All right, and that's exactly what it does. Have a look. Round, thin walls, spaces in between, large vacuoles. All right, guys, things can move through here. They pack. I don't know if you've ever bought anything from Take-A-Lot. It's like that box with all the plastic in it. You can just pop it. And this color is green, which means that this is chloroplasts. Right, so same concept, same cell, same structure. Right, but what do? I add a chloroplast, which means that now this tissue can photosynthesize. So where do you think I'd put this? In my leaf. Okay, think logically there. Right, sometimes I need a little bit of support. Now look at these tissues. These are parenchyma that I've just looked at. But look here, why are these slightly thicker? And what I do here, as I said to you, what can I pump? What can I tweak? And what I do when it comes to Sclerenchyma, Sclerenchyma stands for C, corners, right? The corners are thickened. As soon as I thicken something, I make it stronger. As soon as I make it stronger, support. Right, so there's Sclerenchyma, supporting tissue. Now I take that concept even further with Sclerenchyma, okay? And what do is, there's no cytoplasm, it's just thick cell walls. Guys, if you want to see this nice and clearly, you won't believe what we do in class. We take toilet paper, all right? Toilet paper makes up Sclerenchyma, and you can see these fibers beautifully. Pineapple leaves, these are your clothes that you wear, all right? These fibers, your tablecloths and all of that, all right? Those are the fibers. Now here, this whole structure, just cell wall, these are your sclerids, all right? Or your stone cell. Now, guys, these are the nuts, the outer of nuts. If you have a guava, that's all the hard things inside. What? Lots, very thick cell walls, lots of support, and lots of strength. All right. Then what is the next thing that a plant has to do? A plant must move things around. What is vascular? Vascular means transport. Right, now we don't have blood, but what does the plant have? This is xylem, and xylem transports water. Anytime you think of xylem, I want you to think of a drinking straw. It's hollow, it's thin, and the water can move up it. Its partner, all right, is phloem. And phloem, all right, moves a lot of food stuff around. What do I mean by food stuff? What do I mean is plants photosynthesize. And when they photosynthesize, they, all right, food. And what does that food need to do? It needs to be transported around the plant. So we've got protection, we've got covering, we've got transport, we've got movement. Now, if I have a look over here, as you can see there, all right, xylem and the phloem, very different from each other. Guys, I'm not going to have time to go through it, but this is the kind of question that you can get. Now, this is quite a confusing question because you have actually got to try and see, what am I looking for? There are three very similar diagrams, and you now need to be able, all right, to differentiate what can you see. Have a look here. Thin walls, spaces. What would this be? Parenchyma. Okay. Thickened at the corners. Sclerenchyma. Look at this. Thickened, nothing. I can't see a vacuole, cannot see anything in between. What would that be? Sclerenchyma. Right, so guys, when you're looking at the plant tissues, it's really difficult. I do understand that, but what are you looking for? Have little notes. I'm looking for thin spaces, thin walls, parenchyma. I'm looking for thickened at the corners. What am I looking at? And remember, plant tissue, it's not an animal cell. So I've got to make sure I know the difference between mammalian tissue and plant tissue. Okay, guys, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. We're going to take a wee break and we'll be right back.